Hey, what's going on everybody? I have a Shadowmancer build for you, and this one is extremely fun, specifically for Avatar Azir. It can do all content in the game without any problems, and it is the best build for actually pushing Avatar Azir. When I was first trying out Blood and Bone builds, they kind of hit a ceiling, and even pushing the glyph up doesn't really do much for you whenever you're just getting one shot. And this build allows you to survive and not get one shot, as well as pushing out really good damage. So as always, there's a written link in the description that has everything written out. It has what aspects you need, what stats you need on which gear, where to put your points, where to put your Paragon points. Everything is already there for you, and how to actually play the build. So that is all there, and you can actually follow along with that as we go through this. So let's hop into the gear. So we put Explosive Mist on the helm. This is going to make it so it pops Corpse Explosion whenever you go into Blood Mist, and every corpse that you explode will reduce the cooldown of Blood Mist. Now on the helm, you're going to want Total Armor, Lucky Hit with Barrier, Maximum Life, and Cooldown Reduction. On the chest, we have Disobedience, because as you go up to the higher and higher tiers of Avatar Azir, you're going to need more armor. On the stats for the chest, you're going to want Total Armor, Damage Reduction from enemies affected by shadow damage over time, and either Maximum Life or Damage Reduction from distant enemies. For the gloves, you're going to go with Ultimate Shadow, and this is going to make it so your Bone Storm turns into Shadow Damage, which is going to help to proc more Shadow Blights and ultimately do more damage faster. For the stats on the gear, you're going to want Shadow Damage over time, Lucky Hit, and Ranks to Blight. Anything else you have after that is up to your discretion, whether it be damage to injured enemies, attack speed, completely up to you. Those are the three main ones that you need. For the legs, we're going to go Shielding Storm. So Bone Storm is actually going to put a barrier on you, which is going to massively increase your survivability, because a barrier is effectively up to how much your maximum life is. So the more life that you have, the higher your barrier is going to be, which means the tankier you're going to be. Now the stat you're going to want on legs is going to be Total Armor, Maximum Life, Damage Reduction from enemies affected by shadow damage over time, and Ranks to Corpse Explosion. For the boots, we go with Flicker Step, because it helps with the cooldown reduction for our ultimate skill, which is Bone Storm. And as we know, Bone Storm is giving us massive survivability and a massive damage. We need Bone Storm up as much as possible. Black River is going to be our main hand. It's going to increase your ranks to all corpse skills. It's going to give you a couple ranks of Hewed Flesh and a couple ranks of Fueled by Death. If you can get a perfect roll on this, where you have the 130% plus the 4 ranks to all skills and the 3 ranks to Hewed Flesh, is going to make your life so much better than mine currently is, because I don't have a perfect roll. Lidless Wall for the shield, and this is going to help spread more Bone Storms to keep our barrier capped and spread more shadow damage. Lidless Wall is in almost every end game Necromancer build for a reason. This is a really good shield, and it gives you a lot of damage output and also a lot of survivability. For the ring, we're going to go with Blood Soaked, which is going to make so Blood Mist is going to leave desecrated ground. With the new glyph that we got this season, it actually makes desecrated ground really, really effective. So this aspect is insane when paired with that glyph. So the stats you're going to want on the ring is going to be shadow damage over time, vulnerable damage, and damage to close enemies. You can also do damage to crowd controlled enemies if you get that roll instead of damage to close enemies or vulnerable damage. But ideally you would want shadow damage over time, vulnerable damage, and damage to close. Ring of Sacrilegious Soul for our other ring, it's going to make it so auto cast Corpse Explosion every 1 second, auto Corpse Tendril every 8 seconds, and 3 ranks of all corpse skills. So it's going to really ramp up our Corpse Explosion. And for our necklace, we're going to throw on Blighted Aspect, which is going to increase your shadow damage by 180% for 6 seconds after Shadow Blight key passes damages enemies 10 times. With the amount of damage that you're putting out from Corpse Explosion, which has Pool of Blight on the ground, which is more shadow damage, your Bone Storm, which is now converted into shadow damage, Desecrated Ground from Blood Mist, you're just going to be able to be popping Shadow Blight key passive like crazy. So this will be basically, as long as there is enough packs close by, you will have 100% uptime on this 180% multiplicative increased damage. It's absolutely massive. Now what you're going to want for stats on this is going to be +3 ranks to Gloom, Total Armor, Movement Speed, and Damage Reduction. Don't look at my amulet, it's ugly. It's got 3 ranks to Terror and literally nothing else good besides the damage reduction. I only play with stuff that I have drop for me. I don't trade for anything, so this is the best I've gotten. I haven't gotten a single amulet this whole season that has Gloom on it, so unlucky there, but that's currently where I'm sitting. So on to the vampiric powers. Metamorphosis, as we know with every single build in the entire game, it puts Vampiric Curse on them and makes you unstoppable for 4 seconds. Really good vampiric power, and to be honest, I think every build in the game is using this for the exact reason that it is just way too strong. We're going to go domination for the next one. So whenever you have something stunned, you're going to do 24% multiplicative increased damage. We get things stunned for free from corpse tendrils. It puts a 3-second stun on them and makes them vulnerable. So it really pairs well with that. A cursed touch is going to make it so we also inflict vampiric curse on enemies that we hit. So even if we have mobs that we did not specifically evade through to put on the metamorphosis vampiric curse, we will put it on just by hitting them. And the store of souls from whenever you kill something with a vampiric curse on it will do now double the amount of damage. And I've had the souls, whenever I pop blood mist, actually one-shot one of the blood seekers at the very end of the avatar. So this is actually, don't sleep on those souls. Those souls do some decent damage. Now when you get into the higher and higher and higher tiers, you may want to look into swapping this out for Ravenous, which is going to increase your attack speed, which ultimately will increase your overall damage outside of the souls. So you can swap that out whenever you get to the higher tiers where the souls are just not doing enough damage to make them worth. Then you want to swap out to Ravenous. Anticipation is next, which is going to give us 20% cooldown reduction on Bone Storm, and it's also going to make Bone Storm deal 12% multiplicative increased damage for each nearby enemy affected by our shadow damage over time. So this is absolutely insane for our shadow build. And finally, we have Flowing Veins, which is going to do 60% increased damage over time to enemies that are moving or affected by a vampiric curse. So putting it on, we're going to do 60% multiplicative increased damage over time to them. Book of the Dead real quick. We're going to sacrifice Reapers for shadow damage. We're going to sacrifice Cold Mages for vulnerable damage. And we're going to sacrifice the Golem for critical strike damage. Now, while dots cannot crit, other abilities can, such as the direct damage from Bone Storm, the direct damage from the ghosts that are spawned from Blood Mist whenever you pop those, and the direct damage from Shadow Blight itself. So let's go into the abilities. Grab anything you want here, it doesn't matter. I just grab Hemorrhage for almost all my builds because I like the hand, it looks cooler. Put 1 point into Blight, all the way over to Supernatural Blight for the 15% increased damage. 3 points into Hued Flesh. Come on down, we're going to get 5 points into Blood Mist, all the way up to Ghastly Blood Mist so that it leaves behind corpses. Max out Corpse Explosion, all the way to Blighted Corpse Explosion because this is going to be a huge amount of shadow damage for us. 3 points into Grim Harvest to get our essence back a little quicker. Then max out Fueled by Death so we get increased damage after consuming a corpse, which remember happens every 1 second from our ring. 3 points in Death's Embrace so you take less damage and deal more damage to close enemies. 3 points into Amplify Damage because it's going to increase our damage to cursed enemies, which we're doing with Decrepify for Abhorrent Decrepify to get the cooldown reduction. Put 1 point into Corpse Tendrils all the way up to Plague Corpse Tendrils for 3 seconds of Vulnerable, as well as the 3-second stun that it does. 1 point into Reaper's Pursuit, so you can get 3 points in Gloom and 3 points in Terror. 1 point into Crippling Darkness. Remember, on your amulet you want Gloom, not Terror like me. I am bad. 3 points into Standalone, 3 points into Memento Mori. So 3 points of Standalone is going to give you 18% damage reduction, and Memento Mori is going to make it so that your sacrifice bonuses are increased by 20%. Bone Storm down to Supreme Bone Storm for the 20% increased critical strike chance while Bone Storm is active. And finally, we're going to go with Shadow Blight because this is a Shadow build, and all these other ones don't do anything for Shadow. On to the Paragon. So very first tree, we're going to go up to the right, and then we're going to go and grab Exhumation. This is going to make it so you do increased corpse skill damage, as well as consuming a corpse is going to fortify you and grant you 4% damage reduction for 4 seconds. Now remember, we pop corpse every 1 second, so this is just going to 100% uptime on a 4% damage reduction. Make sure you grab all the ones that I grabbed in here. We're going to grab all of the intelligence nodes within range because it's going to give us more and more corpse damage, which is going to give our corpse explosion way more damage. Next board is going to be Wither, and try and get as much intelligence as you can for the bonus of Wither. Remember, it works in increments of 60. So if you're nowhere close to the next chunk of 60, stay where you're at on your intelligence. It's not worth trying to sacrifice damage somewhere else to get a little bit of extra damage from Wither. It's nice, but it's not going to be game breaking to have the extra 60. If you can get above 660, you'll be at the current bonus of me, which is 16% chance to deal 94% increased bonus damage each time your shadow does damage. Up here, we're going to put in the darkness glyph, which is going to increase your shadow damage, as well as give you a 10% damage reduction for anything that you've hit with shadow damage. And as you're constantly hitting a crap ton of mobs at the same time with shadow damage, you're going to constantly have a 10% damage reduction off of each of those mobs. Next board is going to be Scent of Death, so that whenever you've consumed 2 corpses, you're going to get 15% damage reduction. Let's not worry about the no corpses near you. That does happen on the bosses at the end, though, so you will get the 15% damage increase when fighting the bosses at the end because you're going to burn through your corpses faster than you can generate them. Sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes. We're going to throw a desecration in here, which gives you that 641.5% desecrated ground skill damage. Super crazy damage, which also gives you 15% multiplicative increased shadow damage while standing within your desecrated ground. So whenever you pop your blood mist, you want to kind of move in like a little circle to spread your desecrated ground, so you have a little bit of area to move around in, because it lasts for 4 seconds anyways. And then you're going to do the 15% increased multiplicative damage while standing within that radius. And then our last board, we are going to do Flesh Eater to get the 40% increased damage after consuming 5 corpses. And this is where we're going to throw our Tears of Blood glyph, and you're going to grab every single core stat node within range. This is the best glyph in the game, and it's sad that it is going away at the end of the season. Whenever Abattoir Azir goes poof, this glyph goes poof with it. So this is a temporary thing, so you either have fun with it or you get it for the like initial massive spike of damage and you never touch AOZ again. But if you're here on this video, I'm assuming you enjoy AOZ, or you at least want to push it and have a little fun with seeing how far your build can go. So yeah, mine's actually only at level 4 and I've already cleared all the way up to level 10, so you can push quite high with this build. With the other builds, I could not push this high. I could only push up to like a 6 or 7, and I needed to level the glyph significantly to actually go further. With this build at a level 4 glyph, you can already push up close to level, like I would say comfortably 7 to 10 range, but realistically, if you want to push up into the teens, you're going to need to level this glyph up. Once it hits level 50 is when the radius increases and you're going to be able to go further, so you'll be able to start pulling points out of some like the resist all nodes. You can pull out from here and you can put them into some of these other ones, and that will, you know, give you even more damage whenever you hit level 50. But that is the build. I hope you guys enjoy. I'm gonna throw in some footage at the end of clearing one of the AOZs. I was literally just doing it to continue leveling the glyph, and yeah, so as always, my build is in the description. If you enjoyed, please consider hitting like, and if you're new here, please consider subscribing for more necromancer builds. I'll be making more builds every single season, specifically for necromancer, because it is a class that I do enjoy playing. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and have a nice day.
I need more time. I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. I need more time. ready yet.